Hi guys, Olive here today to talk to you about what I am planning on reading in October 2024. I love October, and not just because I am an October baby, but because October is objectively the best month of the year. I love when the weather starts to turn, it starts to get cooler outside, you can start wearing cozier things, I start shifting my reading to cozier books, and then also some creepy books for Halloween. Here's the thing about October reading for me though, I always have so many books I want to get to, so many books that seem just perfect for the month of October. And then my reading month inevitably goes off the rails because October becomes Nonfiction November preparation month for me. I host the event, I have for the past 10 years, I'm hosting it one final time this year, so I know inevitably my life is going to get swallowed up by Nonfiction November, and I probably won't get to all the books that I want to get to. That never dissuades me from making a very ambitious, very aspirational TBR, and I've done the same thing again this year. So let me show you the books that I'm hoping to get to during the month of October. Over the summer, I had quite a few people reach out to me about this one specific book. People mentioned this book to me in comments here on YouTube. People tagged me on Instagram and Goodreads just to bring my attention to this one book because to all of them, it seemed like an Olive book. And I agree, it does seem right up my alley, so I decided to add it to my October TBR. It is called The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holden. This is the first book in a new series that stars two rival ornithologists who get caught up in an elaborate marketing scheme. They have to deal with bird shenanigans, and they also have to face their growing feelings for one another. So there's a romance element in there as well. I mean, all of this, it sounds absurd in the best way possible. Of course, I was immediately on the hook when I found out that there are birds involved in this. I did pause momentarily when I saw who wrote this, though. I had tried out a different series from India Holden. It started with The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, and I did not like that book. I DNF'd it very quickly. But this sounds so much like my kind of thing that I decided it was worth giving this author another chance. It's also been a really long time since I've read a good fantasy of manners. It's been a while since I read A Natural History of Dragons. I also remember reading Sorcery in Cecilia and the Enchanted Chocolate Pot. I read that one when I was on vacation in Mexico back in 2016, which I actually vlogged. One of the very few times I vlogged here on this channel, if you want to watch that and go back in time. But it's such a niche subgenre that I've had really good experiences with in the past, so it'll be a real treat to go back to that. Another cozy book that I decided to slap on this October TBR is called The Cottage Around the Corner by D.L. Soria. This is another one that stars rivals, but the rivals in this book are two magic shop owners who have to temporarily put their differences aside in order to work together to fight off some sort of evil that's threatening their town. This was one of my most anticipated releases of this current quarter, partially because it sounded so fun, but also because I am deeply obsessed with this cool-toned purple cover. I know that likely has nothing to do with the contents of this book, but it is, honestly, part of what drew my eye to this book in the first place. So we'll see if it's as interesting on the inside as it is on the outside. One that I was paging through when I was last at White Whale Bookstore, and that I just couldn't resist putting on this TBR, is a book called I Love You So Much It's Killing Us Both by Mariah Stovall. This is a coming-of-age story about this aimless young woman who, out of the blue, gets a letter from her former, erstwhile best friend inviting her to a celebration that this former best friend is holding for her newly adopted daughter. Well, as our main character is stressing out, trying to figure out whether or not she wants to go to this party, she starts compiling a mixtape full of songs that she feels really summarizes her experience, her relationship with this best friend. And then we get to learn about that relationship via those songs that she's selecting. This does have mixed reviews, but I was so pulled in by that premise and also by the promise of a very interactive reading experience, because I'm assuming if the songs that she's selecting are real songs, I can go and listen to those as I'm reading the book. This just sounded like so much fun. I have to read it. I have one final novel on this TBR. It's more on the spooky side to suit the Halloween season, but it's also about a complex female friendship. It's called We Love the Nightlife by Rachel Kohler Croft. This book stars two female vampires who first met and bonded back in 1979 over their shared love of disco music. But then fast forward 50 years later, their relationship has decayed into something toxic. The more powerful of the two wants to hopefully save what they have, and so to harken back to the good old days that they had together, she wants to open a disco club with her friend. The friend agrees, but she's secretly still trying to find a way out of this relationship. I feel like all of the books on this TBR have such fun, interesting premises, and this one actually has good reviews, so I have high hopes. But since we're on the topic of vampires, I will now move into my first nonfiction pick for the month of October, which is called Bite, an incisive history of teeth from hagfish to humans by Bill Shutt, which is not about vampires, but it is about one of the main things they are known for, teeth. It sounds like there's going to be information in this book all about the chompers of all different species, and knowing what I know about Bill Shutt books from reading several of his books in the past, I imagine he will use some of those facts to teach us some universal truths about teeth. If I can get to all of these books this month, this is shaping up to be a really, really entertaining reading month, because Bill Shutt manages to be informative and highly entertaining at the exact same time, so I know this is going to be fun. Some more slightly creepy nonfiction for the month of October. I decided to pick Slime: How Algae Created Us, Plague Us, and Just Might Save Us by Ruth Kassinger for this TBR. This book is about scummy, slimy stuff. And by that I mean algae, also known as seaweed, which is a water plant that helped build the world that we know today, but also one that we need to find more uses for because we have such an overabundance of it. I did learn quite a bit about algae because I took environmental science classes in both high school and college, but it'll be great to expand upon that knowledge through reading this book. Expanding upon that topic, though, very briefly, and for the purpose of introducing the next book I have to show you, the primary reason why we have that overabundance of algae is because of agricultural runoff. Farmers use fertilizer to stimulate plant growth. It contains phosphorus. But what's really good on the land isn't so great when that washes off into different bodies of water, lakes, rivers, the ocean, because that stimulation of plant growth happens in the water. And so much algae starts to grow that it starts to choke out everything else in the water, which is not good for the ecosystem there. And I am sure that is going to be a huge topic of discussion in one of my 24 nonfiction books to read in 2024. That book is called The Devil's Element: Phosphorus and a World Out of Balance by Dan Egan. This is a book about phosphorus, not just in the context of fertilizer, but its other more lethal uses, like in nerve gas and fire bombs. So this author explores the history of human interaction with this element, how we've used and abused it over the years. Part of the reason why I put this on that priority nonfiction books list in the first place is because of how highly everyone spoke of this book. So I suspect this is going to be really excellent. My other pick off of that nonfiction list is going to be another highly lauded one called Dope Sick: Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America by Beth Macy. And this book is all about the opioid crisis here in the USA, how it began, the impact that it's had on communities. I did read Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe shortly after it was released. That book is all about the family behind Purdue Pharma, the company that makes OxyContin, the drug that got so many Americans hooked on opioids. It seems like Dope Sick is going to be a lot more about the people who have been affected by this crisis versus a deep dive into the money-hungry Sacklers, but I'll have to see as I go through this one. It'll be really good to follow up on what I learned in Empire of Pain to learn more about this crisis since it is still going on today. And I also know that they made a Hulu miniseries. They adapted it into a miniseries, and I would like to try to watch that if I have time this month. And then the final book on this October TBR is one of the arcs off of my so-called shame stack that I made a video about not too long ago. That book is Where Are Your Boys Tonight? It's by Chris Payne. This is an oral history of the emergence and then peak popularity of emo or emotional music back in the early to mid 2000s. I have been so excited about this book since before it was even released because I loved this music. Back then, I was listening to it all the time. I was a moody teenager, so it really spoke to me. But this is one of those new releases that I feel like I unintentionally put off because I'm so excited to read it. Like, I want to keep it as something to look forward to as long as possible, so I put off reading it even though I'm dying to read it. It's hard to explain because it makes no sense and it's really stupid. I want to read this, so I'm just going to. So those are all the books that I'm really hoping to get to during the month of October. I am probably completely deluded thinking I can get to all of these because, as I said, Nonfiction November preparations take up so much of my free time on top of my normal schedule, which I am already having a really hard time keeping up with at the moment. But we'll see how I do as the month goes along. Let me know down in the comments what you're planning on reading during the month of October. Let me know what you thought of any of the books that I selected. All the ones that I did talk about today will be listed and linked for you in the description box below for your clicking convenience. I will also put links down there to any other videos that I mentioned throughout this video. And at the bottom of the exact same description box, you will also see links to everywhere you can find me around the internet, like my Goodreads, my Storygraph account, and also my Instagram, where I've been trying to post a lot more frequently lately. So be sure to follow me any or all of those places if you want to keep up with what I'm reading and doing right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.